like to appear on camera, please turn your camera off.
Yeah, so hey everyone, just reintroduce myself again. Doug Bellingeri. I've been in the biz apps power platform space since about 2010. So big history with Dynamic CE, and worked in the services space for a very long time for Power Platform and Dynamics, a few of the larger Microsoft partners. Joined Microsoft last year as a technical specialist for low code, and since I was the new guy, I kind of got assigned to Copilot Studio, which has been a blessing and a curse. It's been a lot of fun. It's moving really fast, but it's also extremely busy. So I guess a quick question for the group. How familiar is everyone or unfamiliar with Copilot Studio and agents as a whole? I know it's kind of a dynamics group, so I don't know what the level of interest or understanding is.
You guys can put it in the chat. We'll put it up on the screen if you want, or come off mute.
Yeah, feel free to come up.
I've played around with a little bit, but I don't have anything like live in there. It's just been like playing and learning.
Yeah.
Personally.
Published 4 or 5.
Anyone else? Or you could react. How about that? React with the thumbs up if you're using it today. React with a heart if you are like a pro and you could do whatever you want in there.
That's good. So since it sounds like not a whole lot of people have explored it, then this conversation will be good. And feel free to interrupt with any questions. I'm just going to go through kind of what Copilot Studio is and what our vision from a low-code agent perspective is. Microsoft. So at Ignite, Sauvé used this slide, and our whole kind of low-code team is super excited when Sauvé starts talking about low-code stuff, because it's not super common, right? Of course, Charles is on stage, he's going to talk about it, but Sauvé is usually not talking about it. So Copilot is the UI for AI, and this is the exact stuff that Sauvé used. And what this means is Microsoft's overall vision for agents and Gen AI functionality from a Microsoft stack perspective is that Copilot is the entry point for agents, and then agents are all built on Copilot Studio. Of course, that's not going to really apply to all customers, et cetera, of ours, since not everyone's going to be licensed for M365 Copilot, but that's kind of the vision, is that if an organization is licensed for M365 Copilot, that's kind of your canvas for interacting with all the generative AI agents that we can build on the back end of the same thing. So just my and so kind of going deeper into that, there's 2 key concepts that I want everyone to understand. And this is especially important because we've changed the names of a bunch of things repeatedly in the past few months and years. So, even a few months ago, we were calling things custom copilots. Right now, everything is an agent. And so just to kind of help diffuse that a little bit, Copilot is really referring to any first-party Copilot built within a Microsoft platform. So of course, M365 Copilot is going to be the biggest one there. You'll also have Copilot within Power Apps and Power Automate, et cetera. Those are built in the applications themselves to help you build. They're kind of a maker Copilot, right? And then of course, M365 Copilot is an end user Copilot for personal productivity. Agents are generative AI powered tools to automate business processes, right? So the overall concept is that there's a one-to-one mapping between M365 Copilot and a person, and whereas the agents align to business processes or parts of business processes. So if you're trying to automate a task that's done by a bunch of people, you're going to have a bunch of agents, right? You're not going to have one agent. And just digging deeper into the agent definition. So intelligent AI assistants to optimize business. That's kind of what I mentioned in the slide prior. And where do agents get deployed? They're deployed out to your applications, out to M365 Copilot and our first party biz apps applications, like Copilot for sales and service, and of course SharePoint agents as well, and then Power Platform, and then Dynamics. The canvas for developing these agents and extending them, right? So Dynamics for or Dynamics in sales, Dynamics, Copilot in sales, Copilot in customer service. All these pre-built agents can be extended and customized, or you can build your own standalone agent. Where those are built is within Copilot Studio. And then from a functional perspective, what do agents do? So up until Ignite, agents were really focused on retrieval and task type operations. Right, retrieval being using generative AI to perform RAG over documents. Right, that's kind of the most basic table stakes function that we have within Copilot Studio. And then there's various different ways to do this. Right, if you have a SharePoint site, you can build a SharePoint agent to kind of retrieve information from that SharePoint site. You can build an agent to look at documents in things like a ServiceNow and external to Microsoft as well, to retrieve information from documentation. Task is kind of going one step beyond that and actually trying to do something with an agent. And this is going to be using our Power Platform connectors, of which there's 1,500 plus, 1,600 plus, whatever it is. It's a big number. Using those connectors to go out and actually do something. So more basic if this then that type task completion. And that's been out there for a while now. Autonomous is kind of the most advanced form of agent. And this is going beyond the chat interface and allowing the agent to operate independently of human interaction. So for those of you that are really familiar with Power Automate, this might sound familiar. And there's some differences there in what you can do with Power Automate from an autonomous perspective that I'll talk about kind of some of the following slides. But if you're kind of thinking in your head like, oh wow, autonomous agent sounds a lot like an RPA, or sounds a lot like something I can do with a Cloudflow. Somewhat true, but there's some really key differences that I'll highlight in a couple of future slides. So across that spectrum, we have multiple different places to actually go and build these agents to accomplish your goals from a business process perspective. For those that are licensed within M365 Copilot, we have a kind of a light version of Copilot Studio available within that surface that allows you to build retrieval, and will eventually allow you to build task type agents. The capability to build autonomous agents, I don't believe will ever really be there. Kind of moving up the scale and complexity. So if you're, and the agent builder is more of an end user, right? That's open up to end users to do their own thing. Right? They can then go share those with their team members, et cetera, if that's allowed from a governance perspective. But the idea there is, hey, I'm building something for my team, citizen dev type solution. Once you jump into Copilot Studio, you're kind of already into a more enterprise realm, where makers can go and build very complex solutions. Right, and I'll have a couple of examples at the end here. The biggest of which that are live now are customers like Holland America and PayPal that are using these for end customer virtual assistant solutions.
Can I say a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
For the end user part, the agent builder, is there a special license that those users need, or is that kind of open for everyone?
So it's open. So I guess the answer is yes, but it's not separate from M365 Copilot. So if they're licensed for M365 Copilot, they have access to it.
Cool. So having governance in place right now on day 0 is very important.
Yeah. Yeah.
That could get messy fast.
Yes, it can. Yeah, and so there's some governance tools in there to control whether or not people can share.
Gotcha.
That was a big one that being brought up by every customer. And then going into the pro code, and I'll talk about this as one of the night announcements as well. Copilot Studio plays really well with Azure AI Foundry, right? For those that are wanting to get to more of the pro code side. So what we're seeing now with a lot of our customers is that Copilot Studio is a great starting place to can accomplish a lot of things, but there are certain more complex business processes that need either a different LLM than what's provided within the platform out of the box, or kind of more complex prompt flowing that can only really be done in Azure AI Foundry, which, by the way, again, another name change that used to be called Azure AI Studio. So it's Foundry now. But the integration there is very good and getting better. And what we're seeing is that even if you do need to go into the pro code side for some of your generative AI processing, you get a massive benefit from a time to value perspective by using Copilot Studio for everything that comes with it as a SaaS platform. You're getting the orchestration, you're getting the front end, you're getting all that stuff pre-built for you, all the security, governance, etc. And if you need to tap into certain certain things on Foundry to expand your processing power, that integration is there, but use Copilot Studio as a front end. And kind of just going through at a high level, like, where did Copilot Studio come from? So it's not a rename of Power Virtual Agents, even though that's what everyone seems to think. It's kind of true, but kind of not. Right. So when we were in the Power Virtual Agents world, you had to go through and build every single topic manually. And if you didn't have a topic to answer a person's query or the end user's query, you could either escalate it to a live person if you had the functionality built out, or it would say, hey, sorry, I can't answer your question. When we brought in and kind of migrated to Copilot Studio, we brought in the concept of generative answers and conversational boosting, which allows the agent to use knowledge that you've given it to answer questions that you haven't thought of. So that's kind of where this sits on the spectrum of kind of how we got here. Power Virtual Agents, Copilot Studio replaced Power Virtual Agents, but we consider it kind of totally separate. Again, so Copilot Studio is a platform where we're going to build agents. If you're extending or customizing an agent available on any of these services here, it's going to be done with Copilot Studio.
Does that work in like Power BI and Fabric too? Or not yet?
So I'll be candid in that my scope for this is limited to Power Platform, which of course Power BI is part of the Power Platform. Me too.
I'm asking since we have a Power BI friend on the call.
Yeah, and so it's a fun one to explain to people. It's like, it shows up in the list next to the Power Platform, but I don't focus it or touch on it. Yeah. There are agents. I do know that there are agents within Power BI. Mm-hmm. So I would expect that if they're
there's Copilot there, so probably.
Yeah, I'd need to get back to you on that one because I don't know off the top of my head. But if there's an agent that is extendable, it's going to be extended with Copilot Studio. Whether or not that's deployable with Power BI, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Kind of rehashing something I've mentioned already. So Copilot Studio kind of right now has two flavors. So it's either the one for end users that's being deployed through Copilot, or kind of the full version that's really for makers and developers. I think this is a testament to the ease of which it is to build agents, the fact that it's being deployed out for something that's meant for end user consumption. So, building a basic retrieval or task type agent, if it truly is simple, it's a 5-minute operation. right? It's, and that can be done by end users if the goal is to do it that way. But then similarly, you can do very, more basic stuff in Copilot Studio and get time to value really, really quickly. That's not to discount the level of complexity you can get with Copilot Studio. It's pretty impressive. I know what's been done with Holland America and a few others is impressive. So if you go to Holland America's website now, you'll interact with Copilot Studio agent. You can see what that looks like. So what does Copilot Studio come with as a SaaS platform? A lot of you if any of you are familiar with Power Virtual Agents, a lot of these will be similar. But what we're giving you is overall, I think that critically from a SaaS perspective is you're getting responsible AI built in, you're getting governance built in, you're able to leverage the same governance functionality, being DLP policies and others that are within the Power Platform, right? The environment strategy, et cetera, all the same things that apply to Power Platform apply to Copilot Studio. So you're getting that. You're also getting the generative AI-based planner and orchestrator, kind of orchestrate topics and conversations. You're getting a drag and drop topic authoring interface. You're getting full transcription. You're getting analytics, et cetera. And then again, on the integration side, you're able to use all the same connectors that you're using within Power Automate to connect to systems as needed.
With the Power Automate connector, if they're using like dynamic schema and they're using things that you just can't find out at the time, it needs to have a connection there in order to plan what's available. Is that something that can be done now? Because I know a lot, we were held up on that for a while.
Can you ask that again?
So when you work with Databricks, right, in Power Automate, that's a first party connector.
Yeah.
And you're able to customize your models. You're able to customize tables that we publish a number of Power Automate connectors, but they're similar in that you can configure. It's all dynamic schema. You have to have a connection in order to know what the capabilities are. Is that something that can be done with the Copilot Studio, or?
Yeah. I mean, it's using the same connectors. Sorry, so you're saying you built custom connectors, or you're using out of the
published? They're certified.
They're connectors. Okay. Nick, I knew the answer because I asked it to the product team. No.
Okay.
You can't extend those because they don't support dynamic schema yet.
Right.
But from what I understood, it is on the to-do list.
I know. I asked the question a couple times every year. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't quite understand it. But I mean, anyway, you can create custom.
Oh yeah.
If you want to wear that. Yeah. So, and those can be used in Studio.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
So we have a few customers that I know that are doing that. And then, so like connecting directly to Copilot Studio, Power Platform connectors, that's one way to do things. So, an example that we always use is we have connectors out to like ServiceNow. You can connect to ServiceNow and, interrogate incidents or create incidents, et cetera. But there's also a design pattern where if you already have a connector deployed within your environment, you can call out from Copilot Studio to Power Automate, do all the processing in Power Automate, and send information back to Studio. So that's already, like if you're already lit up and using those connectors that you built with Power Automate, you could do that. You could kind of do that other method.
Is there a specific connector then to get the data back out? Power Automate?
Yeah, so it's called, I can actually jump in and show you what it looks like, but I believe it's called a skill. Yeah, so it's called a skill. And it's kind of, when you try it, you'll see that it's somewhat of a pre-built integration. So in the Copilot Studio canvas, you'll click, advanced, do Power Automate, and it'll create it'll open Power Automate and start creating it for you. And you'll see that there's a skill for input. Then it'll have kind of all the actions that you can do, and then an output. And I'll jump in there. I should have some time.
Okay.
Show that. Cool. Yeah, so that, I mean, that's another key point here is that, yeah, there's direct connection with a subset of the Power Automate connectors to Copilot Studio, like directly. But then if that connection isn't there directly, you can always kind of do this wrap functionality and be able to use Power Automate to get what you need. Any other questions? All right. So the prior slide was, what comes with what comes with Copilot Studio as a SaaS platform, like what are you getting? This is more what is within the actual Copilot Studio application itself. So the key building blocks to any Copilot Studio agent, or really any agent in general, are what's on screen here. So topics, these are, this concept has been around since the advent of virtual assistants, right? It's you might have a topic for certain types of questions, and when that topic gets triggered, it sends the user down a certain set of either follow-up questions or a certain set of processes when you're doing this from a chat perspective. Knowledge is a somewhat new, a little bit of a newer concept, right? So this is either information. So this is information stored somewhere that you're giving the agent access to use to answer its own questions. Right. So, and right now, knowledge can be uploaded directly to the Copilot Studio agent Dataverse, can be in SharePoint, can be in Azure AI Search now as well. You're basically giving the agent knowledge to help answer retrieval type questions. Actions. So actions use our Power Platform connectors to go do something on behalf of the agent. Right. So this might be the example I gave before. Update ServiceNow ticket. Right, is an action. And so there are some actions that are pre-built and directly available, and you can kind of leverage them to go and perform tasks. But then, from an action perspective, I also consider calling out to Power Automate to go complete something. That's also really an action at its core as well, and that's where you can kind of get access to the rest of the connectors that might not be available directly as actions. Analytics. So we have telemetry around conversation performance. We're getting better with this, so we'll soon be having functionality around types of questions that are being asked. So you can start to help build out your agent better. But right now we have telemetry around overall satisfaction with the agent, overall performance, and kind of what the level of usage is. Channels. So right now, I believe there's over 20 channels that we can deploy out to. The easiest ones, of course, being within Microsoft Stack, Teams, etc. But it's also not very difficult to deploy out to your custom websites, custom apps, things like Facebook Messenger, etc. And then finally, which I think is one of the most important ones on here, is the planner. So the planner is using, right now it uses 4.0, that will kind of evolve and upgrade as the models from OpenAI come out. But right now it's using 4.0 to identify user intent in the chat channel and route it to the right thing to do. Right? Is the right thing to do go down a topic and answer based on a predefined topic? Is the right thing to do jump into a knowledge source and say, okay, pull data out of this PDF file and provide it back to the user? Is the right course of action to go to perform an action? So that's what the planner is doing, is routing all that stuff together and the concept of dynamic chaining is the chaining all that stuff together without losing context. And then from a building perspective, within Copilot Studio, you can use things like captive cards. You can use things like videos to help respond to users. And actually, on the topic of images, we just recently kind of released end user image upload as a feature, with end user full file upload coming soon. That functionality used to be more restricted to images like Copilot, but we're bringing that in. So for those of you that are familiar with Power Platform, know that we use PowerFX as a quote unquote low code, no code coding formula system, right? That same type of the same applies within Copilot Studio. So if you want to write out PowerFX functions within topics, that functionality is there. We see that being used pretty heavily, as well as the use of variables within the system. So, storing variables based on input from the end user, passing that information over to things like Power Automate, and then passing variables back from what we get from the target system. We also have the concept of, if you want to, you can turn on and look at the YAML code on the back end instead of using the drag and drop. So that kind of more pro code heavy capability is there for you as well. And then just kind of table stake stuff like productivity, being able to cut copy paste, copy entire agents, etc. That productivity functionality is there. And then kind of diving a little bit deeper into that one topic we had in the prior slide around how you can build. So you can use templates. So for those that haven't played with this yet, we have and I'll share the link in a minute, but we have I think it's 20-ish templates that were released around either if it was at Ignite or prior to Ignite, but they're templates out there that cover some really common use cases like IT help desk, HR, those types of things. There's templates out there that are pre-built and are a great starting place to learn about this stuff. So of course we have various members of the community that put videos in learning, but if you really want to learn and see how something gets built, check out the templates. And I'll show that when I jump into the system here to show. I didn't catch your name. Nick. I'm going to show Nick the kind of power. I'll jump in. So you can, that's one way to build, right? And there's a great chance that for your use case, the template might actually just work right away. Right? Then you can extend and customize it. Next, I'm sure those that are playing with the rest of the Power Platform, you've seen our natural language building capability is kind of getting rolled out everywhere. Like, describe something that you want, and the system figures out how to put it together for you and give you at least a starting point. I've seen that get better and better, and it's going to continue to evolve. So that's another way to build. This is really great for those end user personal productivity type agents that are being built within Copilot. But of course, we always start from this position, even for a more enterprise app. And what that really helps do is, within Copilot Studio, we're moving more and more towards relying on descriptions and natural language to drive how things work. So this natural language component is going to become more and more important. Like the more that generative AI is being used to run the orchestrator, the more that the detail and descriptiveness of the instructions of what you're telling the agent to do, it needs to be robust. So this is going to be really important. Then of course, with the visual canvas, just like you have in the rest of the Power Platform, drag and drop type functionality should generally, everyone should generally be familiar with this. And then finally, this was announced at Ignite, but we now have the agents SDK. I think the official name is like the M365 Copilot, some long name. We just call it the Agents SDK. And this gives you access to more easily do things like, okay, I have an app built out that I already like the way the UI looks. I want to run Copilot Studio headlessly. Or I want to integrate Copilot Studio to something that it doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily easily done with Power Automate. So this is new. So I don't have too much information on exactly what you can do in here, but if you're going down a path and you're saying, well, this is not going to work, the Agents SDK can probably help resolve that, but we're just going to. And then templates, I kind of mentioned this already, but I'll show what. And then so that was just a quick 15-minute crash course on what Copilot Studio is and what it can do. I just wanted to run through some of the key announcements from Ignite that I think are of interest to all of my customers, and probably of interest to you. So autonomous agents was the big one. I mean, this concept from a Copilot Studio perspective has been around for a while. There was an early access program that was going on for quite some time. But just in general, autonomous agents has been a big discussion point across industry. And I support professional services in the Northeast, which includes some of the customers that are on this page here. And really everyone's talking about this as kind of the next wave of value using generative AI, right? I think we've kind of blown past oh, that's cool, I can answer questions off of documents and do RAG and that kind of stuff. I think we've blown past that pretty quickly. And now we're at the point of, okay, how can it like do stuff for me and actually save me a bunch of time or kind of automate processes, et cetera. And that's where autonomous agents come. And so from a Copilot Studio perspective, and this was, I guess, just to reiterate, this was released as a public preview at Ignite, so everyone can go through and play around with this if you have access to it. What we're trying to do here with autonomous agents is go beyond the chat interface, right? So with Copilot Studio up until Ignite, if you wanted to do an agent or use an agent, it was through chat. Right now, whether that chat was deployed on Teams or a custom website, custom app, et cetera, doesn't matter. The agent was only going to be triggered via chat, kind of a chat interaction from it. Now the autonomous agents moves us beyond that and allows us to use essentially all the Power Automate triggers that we have to trigger an agent as well. And the goal here is to automate long-running processes and be proactive instead of just reactive, right? Of course, in the chat interface, it's all reactive, but this can help be a little bit more proactive. The idea being here, right? Okay, how does this differ from two things, right? How does this differ from a task agent? How does this differ from Power Automate? How it differs from a task agent is the goal here is to be, like I said, proactive and to be able to run more longer running processes, right? If I just need to go send an email, you know, like something that a task agent could do or a Power Automate can do, that's a process that's happening, you know, in one turn, right? This is meant to automate processes that, you know, go multi-turn, might last a long time, might involve multiple different types of teams or different agents, and kind of coordinate them all together. How this differs from Power Automate is when you build a Power Automate flow, you're building it as the maker, as the developer, to do a certain thing, and it's going to do that same thing every time. Autonomous agents, while it does use some of the same backend functionality, like the triggers and the actions that are available through our connectors, it's building itself at runtime. So while Power Automate is built and deployed and runs the same way every time, autonomous agents can essentially build themselves at runtime using the toolbox that you've given them. Right? So if you've given it access to 5 different action connectors, different triggers, different knowledge, it'll, as the input comes in to tell it what to do, it'll look at different criteria and figure out the best way to complete the action. That's the biggest difference from my perspective. Of course, it's still really, really new. So, you know, the differences between, or like, where would you do an RPA, where would you do an agent? That is still a bit murky, but that's really the key difference there, is that we're leveraging generative AI to kind of build out the flow and steps at runtime when this is triggered. So a couple other things to note on here. We always have the ability to escalate to a human in here as well. So if it hits a guardrail or hits something that it doesn't know the next step to, or doesn't know the answer to, we can escalate to a human. There'll be ways to monitor these and teach them how to improve. That functionality is not quite there yet, but in our early access program, we were starting to experiment with ways to teach them how to improve. So, you know, look at how it responded to a trigger and how it actually built itself out, and, you know, basically tell it, hey, you know, you should have probably done it this way instead of that way. That's in the works. It was something that we were experimenting with during the early access program. And then a real example, the link there is probably not applicable for you all, but we worked with McKinsey to build out an autonomous agent to help them with triage of essentially incoming project requests. And so that I won't kind of drill into this too much, because I know we don't have too much time, but check out that video to kind of see how this thing works. But essentially what they did was take an email as a trigger, and then it kind of took in a bunch of context around that email, you know, context stored in other systems, and kind of built itself a process to go and try and find the best person within McKinsey, the best partner within McKinsey to kind of start getting engaged. And I'm trying to leave a couple of minutes here for the end, so I'm moving quickly here. But the next thing is, at Ignite, we announced a bunch of updates and improvements to the integration between Copilot Studio and Azure AI Foundry. The biggest ones being, and in public preview now, is Azure AI Search. So if your data source for knowledge is more complex than what we can do out of the box in Copilot Studio, you can go into Azure AI Search and do all the fun stuff you can do within there to serve as a knowledge source for Copilot Studio. So if you have 10,000 documents, right, or something that's not going to work super well, connecting those knowledge to Dataverse or something else, you can go and do that with Azure AI Search kind of index. And then what's another thing that's coming soon is going to be bring your own model. So you see that there on screen. So Azure AI Foundry, within it, has, I think, 1,800 LLMs and SLMs out there. If you want to, you know, if you have a specific LLM or SLM that you use that's industry specific or task specific that you want to use, with Copilot Studio, we can now, or, you know, coming soon will be the ability to kind of light that up directly within Copilot Studio and say, hey, for this topic, let's use this LLM and kind of go down that route to answer the question. That includes things like if you're training your own LLMs or SLMs, the ability to light those up will be there. And then last thing on updates, or I'll jump into the system. There's a change to the licensing that was announced at Ignite that I like everyone to understand. So before December 1st, Copilot Studio was licensed only through message packs, right? So when an agent, so to develop a Copilot Studio agent, you don't need any licensing that's paid. You do need a license, but it's a $0 license. Once that agent is deployed to a channel, like if it's deployed as Teams or a custom website, end user interactions with that agent will consume what we call messages. And those were in the past only available to be purchased via message packs. But we now have, like a lot of the other Power Platform applications, we now have access to use pay as you go. It's a really good way if you're starting to experiment, right? You don't really need to commit to anything. You just turn on pay go and see how things go. Any questions there while I stop sharing and pull up a demo environment real quick?
I don't see any in the chat. You have 4 minutes left. Just
Yeah. Was there anything in the chat there?
No.
Yeah, cool. All right. This is the answer to the next question here. Thank you. So. Okay, so I'm in an agent now. This one was actually started from one of the templates. And I'll show what that looks like in a second. I'm just gonna, so what we're showing here is what does the custom Power Automate, not custom, but what does the call out to Power Automate look like? So I'm gonna go in here, and I'm not really setting this up at all. I'm just gonna show this one piece. So I can go call an action, and you'll see in here I have availability to create a flow. I can create a prompt as well as this. This is a really fun one. If you want to put it, this calls out to AI Builder to do more complex prompting. But what we want to show here is create a flow. So you'll see it actually opens up Power Automate, and it'll have 2 pre-built steps for you. So this run a flow from Copilot and respond to Copilot. So everything in here is whatever you want. Use whatever connector you want to do whatever you want in here. And then within this run a flow from Copilot, you'll see that there are inputs. And so if I add an input here, let's just say I'll do something else. And you just do that. Do that, and I can say respond to Copilot. Save. Essentially, when you back over here, probably won't save. What will end up happening on the Copilot Studio side is that you'll get it'll add the variables to the step so that it kind of knows that it needs an input here. So if it's saved. And then you'll essentially define those variables and pass the inputs over to Power. This takes a minute to show up here. So see, I added the ID number as a variable in Power Automate in that skill section. And so now I can set a variable here or set it manually and go from there. And then once it runs, it'll run and then push a response back. So this is still called an action. It's not an out of the box action, right? So there's these other actions up here that these are kind of integrated directly with Copilot Studio. These are still preview as well. So if you're trying to do something in production, we still kind of recommend to do what I showed before with Power Automate. But like there's different ways to do this, for sure. And then I know I'm at time here, but real quick, and I'll send a link out to this list as well. These are all the pre-built templates that we have, and I'll send there's unlike some of the rest of the Copilot Studio platform, there's really good documentation on these. Yeah, things are changing really, really fast. Some of the documentation is not up to date, but there's some really good documentation on these different use cases here.
Yes.
So a great place to start. Yeah, that's my time. So if there's any questions, send to Heidi and I can help get them answered.
Thank you.
And I'll send a couple links to the chat here also.
Awesome. This was really great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Happy to talk about this. Yes, the duty is 4 or 5 times a day, so it's pretty fun.
Eric, are you all ready? Oh, look, Eric put something in the chat too. For me, an agent is a bit like an intern or new employee. Provide them with, yay, that's a good idea to.
Yeah, that's how I see it. Like it's and a bit like I said before, like the for me, like autonomous agents are a bit like Copilot and PowerMate having a child. We get those agents, and really what I like from what I've started to discover with it is also for the action. So like for the parts that what does it need? Like working with the Power Automate Copilot. So you give it kind of instructions on, here's what I expect you to do and how to do it, but that's it. Like you don't build the whole story, the whole flow. You just kind of give it instruction on here's what I expect you to do. And then it just does it. It's like it's just like the combination of all things that we've seen coming along like in the last 2 years together. It's really, really, really powerful. I love it.
Yeah, it's fun.
So we got Leoza. Hi, Leoza.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
So if we're ready, I will share my screen.
Yeah. Leoza is really like the one with the bulk of the knowledge on the process mining. I'm just there to entertain.
Thanks, Eric. All right. Okay, hi, everyone. Today, Eric and I are here to present on Power Automate process mining and kind of give you a general idea of what process mining truly is all about. Eric, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Cool. Yeah, so this is my Brady Bunch, 13 by the dozen, however you want to call it. I'm building a dynasty. I have like 3 kids and 5 grandkids, 2 more coming soon. This is the center of my life. Even though I'm really busy working, this is my passion, like spending time with my family. Besides that, for work, I'm a solution architect in the projects that I do, and I love to present and share my knowledge. And that's how I came about being an MVP, also certified trainer. And as I said, I put in the chat before, I'm one of the organizers for the Canadian Power Platform Summit. You've got to register and come. That's where Leoza did our first public presentation on process mining.
I did, yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Leoza. I'm a functional consultant at Alethea. I am from a small island in Canada called the Vancouver Island, and I live in a small city called Victoria. It is a beautiful island. If you have not visited ever, I would highly recommend it. For work, I specialize in the Power Platform and Dynamics 365 and project operations, and have been helping our clients with all of their digital transformation projects, which has been a lot of fun. On the agenda today, we're going to talk about processes, how to navigate expectations, what is process mining, how does it work with Power Automate, what are the different steps for process mining. We'll do a small demo, talk a little bit about the challenges in process mining, talk a little bit about a case study, touch a little bit on task mining, and then conclude with continuous improvement. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of process mining, I think it's important for us to get to the basics and talk about what a process is. Processes, I think we're all part of processes in our day-to-day lives. Each of us have our different morning routines. We wake up, we have breakfast, we get ready for work, we go to work, we start work, then maybe later on we go to the gym. So we have our own little processes that we follow. But from a more organizational perspective, a process could be, let's say, your procure to pay process, maybe even your timesheet process. When you put your hours in every week, there's probably a process that you're following. There is accounts payable processes. There is invoice approval processes. So there's lots of different processes we see in our day-to-day at work. So processes are really a series of activities that we take to meet our organizational objectives. When we put a process in place, we have a sort of an expectations that our process will run a certain way, but a lot of the times they don't. So that's where expectations versus reality come into place, right? So visionary. So let's talk about this image on here. When we travel, when I travel, let's say, I get super excited to check out all of the different landmarks, and I spend so much time researching on the internet, looking at blogs, getting my outfit ready so I can take pictures. But then most of the time when you go there the next day, the picture on the right is the reality. There's so many people, you're lucky you can even get a good photo in. And that's how business processes also work. Business processes are far more complex and less structured than documented and expected. You think your business processes are going to run in a straight line, but in reality, there are so many bottlenecks, so many deviations, so many hiccups that happen within the process that it doesn't necessarily run the way you think it will run. It's not really clean and simple. In reality, there's so many people involved and they have so many different ways of completing the process that it's hard to stick to the vision.
Yeah, so really like, looking at the business type of process, for example, like invoice processing, like, if I ask anyone about like, what is invoice processing? Most of the time we'll get the left side of things, the expectation. So yeah, I'm going to put in the invoice in the system. I'm going to check it out. I'm going to post it into like the GL. I'm going to pay it and then, clear it out. Like that's pretty straightforward. A to B, straight line. But as you see on the right, reality shows that, okay, I do the invoice entry, but there might be some duplicates there. Or once I do the verification, there's like some mismatches. If there's a mismatch, what do I do? How do I do the correction? Do I need to go back to the supplier and so on? Like, do I need to go back to the employee who put that in? Like, what do I do? Like different kinds of situations, different things are going to happen. I post my invoice. Maybe I missed some some discounts, or I have to do a bit of manual processing to pay the invoice. Maybe it's late. I need an approval, late submissions to clear it out, like all things. So it's more like you see below the straight line, what we call like the spaghetti bowl, where, everything's more mixed up and it goes in all kinds of directions. So really, that's what we need to focus on. What we'll be looking at is how can process mining help us or help you identify what the reality is.
So what is process mining? Process mining helps you see the inner workings of your processes. So again, going back to you thinking that your process is running in a simple, clean, straight line. However, there are a lot of hiccups that come along in the way. So it lets you see those little deviations and bottlenecks. It's like an X-ray. You can see what's broken and what's not broken. It allows you to find your bottlenecks and do root cause analysis and see why are certain things happening a certain way. Why is your process getting completed in like hundreds of different ways? It shouldn't be that way. Why are there so many delays and reworks? So it gives you a lot of insights into how your process is running, which you then look at, and then you're able to make data-driven decisions to improve your process, to streamline, to standardize, to automate your process so you can eliminate those bottlenecks that are there.
So in Power Automate, what you'll see, Leoza will demonstrate later on, but what you'll get to see is your process map. For example, on the left, you see like all those different variants. What we call variants is the different path that a process take, and then you can see how many of those are happening. And, for example, what's the duration of those, what we call cases. So cases are really instances of a process. So I processed an invoice from the time I received it to the time I posted it and cleared it. That's one case. That's one instant of a process. And we apply that to all kinds of processes left and right. So for a process, what you'll get is, so for like one of those cases, what we'll need to follow through the life of this case is changes in what we call a status. So when we identify, like, okay, I need to follow my invoice processing process here. So what I'll need to look at is how does the invoice status changes. It's been received, it's been reviewed, it's been approved, it's been paid, it's been, whatever, like all those statuses. This is how we know, like those little bubbles that we get are the different activities, for example. So when we look at an event, we have like the case that identifies this instance. We have the activity, so which status is it? And we have at least a timestamp. When did this happen? So that's how we're able to say, well, the average duration for this case over time was X, X amount of hours, X number of days, weeks, whatever. So once we have all that, then we bring that into the process mining tool.
And if I can add to it, you might be wondering why should I go with Power Automate? There's all process mining. There's other tools out there. But to answer that question, I'm going to say that it works really great with the Microsoft platform and ecosystems. And you might already all know that there's over 1,500 connectors inside the Power Platform. So if you're already working with the Power Platform, or if you are working with some of these connectors that are available inside the Power Platform, it will connect perfectly. So you can use process mining to connect to your live data. It can be Dataverse, it can be Oracle, SAP, SQL, and then you do your process mining. And then to do your improvements, you can use Power Apps or Power Automate to automate your processes. You can also use a Power BI report to analyze those insights that you get out of your process mining. So it's a whole circle, and it all works really well together.
Talking about a circle.
Yeah.
It's kind of squarish, but
Perfect
you get the
segue.
idea here. It runs in circles. So, how does process mining work? And here, it's not just the tool, but it's the actual process mining as a skill or as a test of what, what's involved in there, like what we call process intelligence. So everything feeds everything else. From the data extraction. So as Leoza referred to, we can get data from different sources. I might have some information in SAP. I might have some information on my Oracle system. Maybe I have some information on Dataverse or in Excel. So the first part is, how do I identify those cases? So those like instances of my process, and capture it, bring it together, align it, making sure that, for example, I have like the same, like a similar time zone system, or the hours and like the timestamp are valid all across, and I'm using the same kind of lookup value. So I might have to do a bit of transformation here on my data. So first, I extract that. From there, next step, I'll discover. I'll identify those processes. I'll get this process map and go through interaction and try to understand, and from there do some analytics. So I have all my data, I have my dashboard, I can look through it, and then I can start to look at how can I improve and build, like, some recommendations and take some actions. how do I take those actions? I'm going to transform my operations. I might put in place like some automations. I might add an app to ease some of the what used to be quote unquote manual entry and limit some of those areas. And what I want to do after maybe a month or 3 months, I want to extract data again, have my process improved, and then keep going and keep going and keep going. So I always improve what I've done, and I can monitor how I performed.
And with that, we are going to do a demo of the Power Automate process mining tool. The screenshot that you saw on that slide about Power Automate process mining that Éric talked about, that was on the Power Automate cloud. However, there's also the Power Automate process mining desktop application, which has far more functionalities. And I'm just going to go do a quick overview of each of the functionalities that are available inside the Power Automate desktop tool. And for this specific demo, I'll be using a customer service case management process. So let's say you have your events log, you have all of your data, you've ingested it into the Power Automate process mining tool, it will generate a beautiful spaghetti looking like process map for you, right? So as you can see here, it's not a straight line. There's so many little meatballs in there with your spaghetti bowl. It's not just a new ticket in progress, assigned to, resolved, and then closed. It's not as simple as that. There can be other stuff happening, like we're waiting for our clients for more information, we're waiting on Microsoft, there is a workflow involved, and then we need more information, or it has been canceled. So there's so many possibilities of things to happen, right? So as soon as you ingest your events log, you'll get this process map where you will be able to see what your process really looks like. So this is our frequency process map, where you can see how many cases are involved in your process. So how many cases are going through one activity to the other. You can see all of the edges. And when you see any bold lines, that's where your most common that's your most common edge. So in progress to result informed client, most of our cases go through that edge. And same with resolved and then problem solved. You can also see performance. So you can see on average how long your process is taking to complete, how long does it take to go from one activity to another. You can also see the total duration of your process as well. There is the rework functionality, and if you don't know what reworks are, it's basically a combination of loops and self-loops, meaning it is when an activity is directly followed by the same activity or indirectly followed by the same activity. So sometimes in processes, you'll see there's like 3 approvals, and you look at it and you're like, do we really need 3 approvals? No, maybe not. Or you might see approved, and then it went through another stage, and then it went back for approval again. So lots of approval stages. So that's where the reworks come into play. There's also, if you have monetary values in your events log, you'll also be able to see how many, how much money goes through each of the stages. But in this case, I don't. So we don't really see the numbers here. So that's what your process map is going to look like, and you can filter it however you want. Another big one is big functionality are the variants. So variants are, what are the different ways your process is getting completed? And one of the projects that we've done, it was a procure to pay process, and there was about 800 different variants. So imagine there's 800 different ways of completing your process. That is crazy. You think your process is running a certain way, but no, it's not. There's 800 different ways.
That's pretty far from a straight line.
Yes, absolutely. And in our case, we have 400 different ways of completing our case management process, which is a lot. But as you can see, our most frequent variant is at the top, And this is basically our ideal path, our happy path. So new ticket goes in progress, it gets resolved, and problem solved, we close the ticket. That is our happy path, and that is our most frequent one. So most of our cases go through that, which is great. That's what we want. So this is where you can really dig into each of the variants and see what are the events that are taking place in each of the variant, and then dig into it to see, okay, so I have variant 3. Variant 3 goes through these 3 stages, and on average, it takes this long to complete, or in total, it takes this long. You can also see all of the...
Is that real data?
This is real data, yes.
Ooh, so it takes us on average 3 months to get our cases resolved?
Yes, it does.
Oh, need to talk to someone here.
It does. Surprise, Eric.
It hurts.
So you can also look at what are the different cases that are involved in this variant, and it also gives you a kind of a Gantt chart. And then you can only filter it by activity. So that's the variant. This is where I've seen most of our conversations getting sparked in our previous projects, where everybody sits down and they're like, oh, what's happening here? Why is it going through what is this one? Result informed client twice. What is happening here? Did something happen? And then your experts can come in and be like, oh, for this specific case, this happened. So when you're sitting down and analyzing your process, it's really important to have all of your experts, data expert, process experts, your business leads, all of them to come together to be able to analyze it and be able to tell the story of your process, because you won't find, there might be information missing from here that your experts will know. Oh, like for this specific case, there was a duplicate. So this is the process it went through, right? There, you also have access to statistics, and this is where you get all of your numbers for your process. So it tells you the story. So how many cases are you working with? What is the total duration, the average duration? What is the waiting time? So you get all of those numbers here, and how many variants are we working with? You can also filter it by the different categories that you might have in your event log. And it is really important to know that if you have the data, you will have the information. So the more data you have, the more information you'll get about your process. So if you want to look at your cases by priority, and you have that information in your events log, okay, so for there is about 250 high priority cases, and it takes this long to complete. So you get all of that information and how your different priorities vary, and depending on what other attributes you have in your events log, you'll be able to get that information. The next functionality I want to touch on is the process compare. So if there we go. So the process compare allows you to compare your processes. So going back to categories, let's say you have your high priority high priority cases versus your low priority cases. You can do a comparison to see where your difference lie. In this case, I've done a process compare for my internal and external external cases. So I know for a fact that our internal cases that we submit, it goes straight into in progress, and then it gets assigned, and then they do whatever needs to be done. However, for our external cases, they do it through an external portal, and it goes through a new stage at first, then it goes to the other stages. So there's already that difference. As you can see, I'm in my internal, and there's a big bubble up here that's saying, okay, 456 cases are actually external, which makes sense. And so wherever you see those big bubbles and some bold lines, that's where your differences will lie. Okay, so my internal cases go through this stage, but my external cases don't really go through this stage. Okay, so this is the difference between my internal and external cases. So this is where you come here to do a comparison. And also going back to Eric's comment about continuous improvement, if you have if you have analyzed your insights and you have made improvements and you've automated it and you want to come back in 4 months to look at what your process is looking like, you can create those views to filter by date range to see what your process looked like 4 months ago versus what your process looks like now. And you can find the differences in here as well. And again, it goes back to the data. If you have the data, you'll be able to find the data. Heidi, do you have a question?
Yeah. So I noticed Copilot is here in the top right hand. What does Copilot do here in process mining?
I was going to get to that at the end. Well, we can cover it now. So Copilot is here, and I do want to emphasize that Copilot is still in its baby phases. So in the Power Automate desktop profile, but really it will help you analyze your insights. So you can go in there and you can say, hey, Copilot, provide me with the top insights on my process. So it will give you what your top insights. It'll tell you the numbers. There's 741 in progress, 185, and then you can say, how do I identify my bottlenecks? And then one of the cool thing about this Copilot is if you ask it to address your bottleneck. Right now, it doesn't know how to address my bottleneck, but normally what I've seen is that it'll give you, it'll say, hey, you can build a Power App, or hey, you can build a Power Automate to automate your approvals. And then you can actually click on the solution you like best, and it'll have created a basic Power App or Power Automate already for you, which you can go in and modify based on your business needs, which is pretty cool, I think. Sorry, I could not demo that because Copilot doesn't like me today, but...
That's
It's
one of our biggest differentiators with process mining to our competition is that kind of easy mode, okay, fix it for me, right? And yeah, of course, it's kind of in its infant stages as far as usability and how far that can actually take you. But yeah, like it can recommend, hey, here's a Power Automate that, here's a cloud flow, for example, or a desktop flow that might help solve for some of these bottlenecks or issues.
Yeah.
And then, kind of help you build that out pretty quickly. So a huge differentiator for us.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because the what happens is like the people who do the process mining are not necessarily the people who build those, automations or applications. But here it provides them with a way to communicate this request to the people who would do it. Because, they already have, something built as a base, and they can, forward this to like someone who's more of a maker profile and do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I do want to cover root cause analysis here. So root cause analysis helps you get into the why or dig into some of the stuff that's happening. So if I want to look at my case duration by the people that are completing the case, and don't worry, I've changed all of the names, so we won't see real names in here.
Be careful, we're recording.
Yeah.
You don't want to call Éric out for his 2-year-long case there.
Yes. Could be dangerous. So here you can see that the red side are my cases that take the longest versus to the left, the blue side are my cases that don't take as long. And here are my people that are pretty good at completing the cases in a short duration. However, these are my 2 guys that are my worst offenders. And then you can continue to dig in and see, okay, so these are my good people amongst my good people who are better and who are not, and same on the other side. So it really helps you get deep. And we actually did a timesheet process mining, where we did root cause analysis, and we found the people that are consistently late in submitting their timesheet, and it actually matched perfectly with all of our data. So it was very cool to see that okay, yeah, it matches what we have. These are my people who are constantly late. And so so this is where you sit down and you're like, okay, so what do we do about this? Do we need more training? Do we need to sit down and figure out some accountability strategies? What do we do here that would help our people. And it's not just resources. You can, if you have the information, you can do root cause analysis. Let's say if we're looking at invoice approval or procure to pay, you can look at your vendors. So who are my vendors that I miss discounts with all the time? And then you can determine the process based on the different plans or departments that you have in place, or the people who are involved in the processes. So this really helps you get into the why of certain things and have those discussions to decide what you need to do to improve the process. And lastly, I want to cover process simulation. I will be very honest, I have not played around with this all that much, but this is a new feature that has come out. And this is where if there is an area you want to improve on, this helps you see what it would look like once you've made the change before you make the change. So before you put in all the effort, all the cost, you can see what your process is going to look like. And I watched a demo where they decided to remove manual activity with a chatbot, and then so the bottleneck was just shifted from one activity to another activity. It's not like it was removed. It just shifted to another place. So this will help you see, like, is this really gonna eliminate my problem, or is it just gonna move it somewhere else, or it's gonna improve this aspect of my process. However, it might not on the other corner of the process. So this is a really cool feature that's come out, and I think would help businesses a lot to make those data-driven decisions, to make process improvements.
I really like the fact that this part is going to save time in trying something that would just be, a waste of time. Cause it's kind of funny because, we're trying to improve processes. So, being better at, and here we're adding a layer where it helps us being better at being better at.
Yeah.
Like feeding on top of the other, like really good.
Yep.
So process mining does come with, it's set of challenges, through like 3 different areas, we would say. The first one around data. You need quality data, because otherwise you'll be doing analysis on, something wrong. We see that in AI, we see that in BI, but process mining is just saying you need to make sure that the data is accurate, it's complete, it's consistent. So it's you do your data cleaning there, and the integration is valid. I talked about it earlier on. For example, you're using like the same time zone or the same point of reference. You're using the same kind of lookups because your data might be coming from different systems. So make sure the integration was validated, and validate the data. So get people involved that know about this, because they might see something. And we had the example in one of our customers where we showed them, like, okay, we did this, data gathering, and we did the process mapping. And when they looked at those variants, what Leoza was showing with those little tiles, they looked at it and said, well, that is wrong. And they pointed to an area, that is wrong, where I think it was paying the invoice before it was posted.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. It just didn't make sense. But if me, I'm just like processing this, maybe I'm not familiar with the content, it's good to have those people involved, because they will identify, oh, that is wrong. So then I have to go look back at data, make sure, like, okay, what's the issue here? Make the correction, so we're looking at the good stuff.
And if I can also add on the data part, this is where also you might have to consider governance strategy, because there's going to be a lot of sensitive and confidential information involved. So you might want to consider, like, when you're doing data cleaning, making sure that all the sensitive data is removed, or you apply some kind of data masking to make sure that you protect those information that's not supposed to get out there. Process complexity is also a challenge. A lot of the times processes are so complex and large that it can be overwhelming to even sit down and look at it. So some strategies you can use are simplification, visualization, and customization. So so if you have a big process, take a small part of it, break it down into sub processes, and figure out and focus on smaller sub processes and make improvements there, and then move on to the next one. So simplifying the process helps out a lot. And then to do that, you can also use various different visualization tools to help you figure out complex processes and help you understand it better or analyze it better.
And like I said earlier, like the interpretation of the process mining, you need people who know about what the context is. Because there's so much data in there. It's not just data analytic parts, but it's understanding what the process is about. So bring along the SMEs, have them involved in the different steps. Make sure they're trained on how to use process mining, because you'll want them to go and interact with what's there. Just like Leoza was showing, like, okay, let me look at this based on the angle of the vendor. Let me look at this based on the angle of which business unit is processing this. So, because they know this stuff, but they need to be trained on the tool set. And finally, make sure you go through iterative analysis. So try it and review it. Try it and review it. Improve. Remember that squarish circle that we had? Like feed the beast.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. This was for a publicly traded company. We did like the process procure to pay. That's the one we talked about a couple of times. And really we worked with subject matter expert there to gather the data and making sure that and I think we see it about like the 6th or 7th line where like the pink box is not the first one, which is invoice entry. It's like the purple one that is there, which is I think payment. Those are things that we discovered with them. And they were really in a way of, oh yeah, we know our business and we know how things are. When this came about, and there were like I think how many like variants was it, like over 1,000 variants or something. They said, okay, we need to do something and improve. And now they're using this across the organization for other processes. So this was, we worked on this for a POC, but now they really use it all across. And it helps them, because again, publicly trade, it means like in their case that they need to demonstrate ISO compliance in some cases for the administration part, and this just helps them because they have traceability.
Yeah, and I have to add that they were already doing process mining with Solonis. I don't know if you know that company, but they were, but that was very unsuccessful because of how expensive Solonis was. But when they implemented Power Automate process mining and we built this for them, they were quite content and happy and satisfied because this was giving them so much information and they were able to have such good conversation and then make those decisions to improve their processes. And it was much, much cheaper than Solonis. So I want to briefly touch on task mining before we conclude for the day. So task mining is also another technology that is available to you on the Power Automate desktop, which allows you to capture user interactions in your different processes. So it records the interactions like mouse clicks, keystrokes, and application navigation, and then you're able to see how certain specific activities inside your process are getting completed, and various different people are involved so different people are probably involved in the different stages of your process. So it helps you understand how are the different ways your people are completing or performing each of these activities on their desktop. And then you can figure out how to identify and eliminate unnecessary action and the most common actions that are getting completed by your people. So you might think that if people perform a task a certain way, it's more efficient, but most of your people are completing a different way, and it's a better option. So it helps you see those specific ways of how your activities get completed, and it also helps you make sure that you're compliant, and also helps you find, let's say, opportunities to make your process more efficient or your specific activities more efficient and reduce human error.
So
yeah.
Continuous improvement. We said it like with process mining, you'll get visibility into your processes. There's like, it's marketing, but at the same time, it's a fact. You'll get the better visibility. You'll be able to improve and optimize your processes, and hopefully you'll be able to either reduce your costs, improve your efficiency, or enhance your overall performance. That's why we're doing this. That's why, why and where this is useful.
And with that,
I saw a question from Heidi on the chat, and yeah, I have no problem talking about this on recording. So the question was around the data capacity, like where does this whole data resides, and how does this impact Dataverse or things like that. So pretty much what happens is with a for each Power Automate premium license that you have on your tenant, it's going to add up about like 50 megs of capacity that is allocated for process mining, and that adds up at the tenant level, and you can go up to 100 gigabyte of capacity overall. If ever you get to the 100 gigabyte capacity, what you need to go for is the process mining add-on, and then you can add up it adds up on top of that. So premium licenses, you get basic 50 meg per premium license up to 100 gig, and above that you need to go with the add-on. Cool. Any other questions? All good.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. Actually, that was super interesting. Thank you, Leoza. Thank you, Éric.
Like there was a question.
Oh.
I'm sorry. This is Tristan. I do have a question. How does this? Because I saw it and I was actually playing with it yesterday in Power Automate Cloud. And but how does this connect to gather the data that's not a flow? So because what you were explaining was it was collecting like keystrokes and other data that's not a part of, that wouldn't be a part of a flow. How is it connecting to connect outside data of a flow?
So when we talk about keystrokes, that's specific task, that's task mining. So that's your specific task that you're completing on your desktop. So let's say you get an email with an invoice and you need to enter that invoice into your system. So there is a Power Automate desktop recorder that you can use to, while you're entering your invoice, you can use to record the steps, and then that information is gathered into the process mining tool to see how the invoice entry activity is getting completed. And then it's done for many different individuals. For the events log on the process itself, you need to have some kind of data, let's say on Dataverse or SQL or wherever your data lies. For procure to pay, I've seen it's mostly most organizations have that information on SAP. So you'd have to connect to your SAP system to get the live data where you have all of your logs. So what are the different activities that are taking place in your system for each of your invoices at what time. So you need your case ID, your activity, and your timestamp. So you need to have to document that process in your system somewhere. And sometimes it's not like you're recording it as an events log. It could be that you have multiple different tables, multiple different sources that you need to combine together to be able to see that log data, right? Or what I have done in my case was I just took a CSV extract and just uploaded it into the process mining tool, and I was able to see data for a specific date range versus seeing live data. So there's all of that possibility.
Is that your question, Kristen?
Yes.
Cool.
All right, we are at time. Thank you guys so much for attending. Thank you, Éric and Leoza and Doug, for presenting. These were awesome sessions. I learned a lot today. And enjoy the rest of your Friday the 13th. May no black cats cross your path. You're super lucky.
Enjoy.
And have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
holiday, everybody. And enjoy the rest of 2024.
Bye-bye.
Bye. See you.
Thank you.